Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about just some smaller details and little extra bits of accessories you can add to virtually any set of armor to make it look just a little bit better. Whether you are scratch building a kit through either Pepakura or hammering out your own aluminum if you've watched my other videos, or buying one pre-made from like a place like Spat Cave or Chef's Creations, or getting kit form from Chef's Creations. These little details are things that they virtually never come with, but it's little bits and details that are going to help your armor pop and really stand out. First thing we're going to do is look at the neck bindings. Simply put, this is some fairly dark gray vinyl or leather if you want to be extra fancy, but this was on all the screen use sets, and you see it right here expertly applied to a legitimate Terry English set of armor. This small detail gives a finished look and sort of frames everything in a very, I don't know, comfortable, warm kind of way. Like I said, it's very screen accurate. It's present on everything. Virtually no one does this. Now, this is the crazy part, is that it's actually very easy and dirt cheap to do. This is a little homemade bit I did when I did my video on scratch building your own armor. Mine isn't quite as pretty as the professional, legit man's. He has obviously an industrial sewing machine, I guess, whereas I got a little rinky-dink one, or maybe I just didn't have the right settings, I don't know. But you can buy vinyl from like a place like Joann Fabrics. I think they call it marine vinyl. Marine meaning water, not Colonial Marine. But you can get dark gray vinyl for like, when it's on sale, $10 a yard. And a yard of this provides enough to, you know, do 20 sets of armor. So you just fold over the one side, sew it down with whatever sewing machine you happen to have, and you've got your base material. And then you can just clamp it and glue it from there. And that's the hard part, is getting enough clamps to properly get it to seat. So if you got a bunch of clamps, you're good to go. If not, you may want to grab some from Harbor Freight or a dollar store, get a bunch of clamps. But making this stuff is super easy. I'll say some of these are straighter than others. They're all the lengths I want. I'm going to be pushing those in here, technically like this. We're going to do the front collar, the back collar. This is going to be the other side. I've already cut them to the size I need them. Now I'm just going to use some glue. I have had good luck with this 6000 glue. It has a nice strong bond and it's semi-flexible. It's pretty flexible, really. So I like using this on fabric. Also just 1,000,000 clamps. So we're going to need a lot of good clamps to hold them where we want them to go and leave them overnight. So we'll probably have to work in sections because I only have about 5 clamps. Here's a fun little copy detail. The original Bear Dynamic mics were on sort of a stalk. You twist it lefty-loosey, righty-tighty to position your microphone. In the originals, and in this Terry English copy here, that's using a real Bear mic, the little knob was cut out of a hole in the bottom, so it could actually still be adjusted and change the angle of the microphone. Virtually nobody is making this little detail. So if you've got a resin copy from whichever maker, go ahead and just sort of glue on a little button. It doesn't have to be cast off of a real Bear mic, although this one actually is. I cast that myself actually to make these little buttons. So maybe I can get some more available at some point. But it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be a screen cast. You can just glue it right into your resin copy. It could be a bottle cap, something that you cut small and just glue into place. Anything with a ribbed edge, make a little silver weathered black and just glue it in place, and it's going to add a real nice sense of authenticity. Same with these little flathead screws. In the originals, that is actually drilled right through it into the real stalk. If you don't have the real stalk, that's not that big a deal. You can still put a little flathead screw there. The combination of these two things really is a small detail, but it can make a big difference in the look of your helmet. Here's another easy one. Everybody hates when your ear flap is just dangling around, walking around, or worse, if you've got it so that, you know, the mic balance has it off where it's literally sticking out. You know, on film, they didn't really stick out very far. they were all pretty snug against your head. I hate that swinging door look. So your choices are either wear your chin strap, ape-home style, or, you know, if you want to be more free-flowing, this is an easy fix. On your helmet, attached to the inside of the liner, either utilizing the clips from the nape strap on a real liner, use a little elastic, and then attach it to your ear cup so that it's constantly being pulled to the middle. Even if it's just hanging loose, it wants to go straight against your head. And if it tries to move out, more than gravity is holding it in. Literally, you've got something pulling it. So one of the original modders of this on the Aliens Legacy forum actually used a rubber band to accomplish the same effect. I just noticed that elastic is a little easier. So what I got is it riveted to the resin cup inside of the ear padding. Here I'm going to do the elastic trick again on this. I've taken apart, this is a fiberglass cast, so it's actually hollow. It actually makes it a little bit harder than a resin cast to do the elastic trick to keep it against your jaw, because there's not as much material to grab with screws. So what I did is I basically took it all apart, and I'm going to use a single rivet through the elastic on the inside, through the top hole, that's also going to connect my chin strap. And then once I rivet those in place, you know, I can reattach the rest of my ear flap. This is on my Hudson helmet. And then I just lace that top part of the elastic through the nape strap on my regular liner, and I'm ready to go there. I can adjust it for how tight I want it on this, and it's going to be permanently attached to the ear flap, and it's going to stay in a nice, good, tight against my head position from there too. Here's the effect of the elastic. It really wants to hug the jawline, which is exactly how it looked in the movie, even if the chin strap is not tightened. Obviously, if you don't want to mess with that, you can just tighten your chin strap. It'll be against the side of your head without issue. But a little elastic or a rubber band or anything really can go a long way. It's my little 2 cents. Make your setup look a lot better. So this is something I'm kind of playing around with. Obviously, if you have a drop-down IR sight, they are great. They're cool to look at, especially if you get one that lights up. It actually can take up a lot of space in there. I don't know how easy y'all can even see that. It requires sometimes cutting the liner, cutting out the steel pot of the helmet to make room for it, and I don't even have that big a head, 7 3/8 hat size, and this sucker is still pushing up against my forehead. They're not very comfortable, but if you want that look of having the IR sight, this is something that's kind of experimental. I'm playing around with it. Just get that shape with the tooth pattern on it, and go ahead and just paint it black, obviously, and glue that sucker right under there. It doesn't take up space. It gives you that look like you've got the IR sight under there. Basically, it's a dummy IR sight. That's all I'm playing around with. You can scratch build one of these yourself. It's not hard. The pattern is really simple, and just glue it up under there. Just give it the little ridge. So, like I said, I don't know. It's a work in progress for that. I don't have a truly finished thing to show you for that on one of my helmets. But that's something I'm going to do to 2 of them. One way or the other, I'm going to figure out a little dummy IR sight and stick it up in there, because I think that's going to add a lot of character and a lot of class to it. And the next thing we're going to try to do is sort of replicate the internal padding. On the original sets, it was a Dutch Army sleeping mat with like a grid pattern going on with it. Those are, I mean, sleeping mats don't last very long, and Dutch Army sleeping mats are nearly impossible to find. But you can sort of replicate that look with some simple tools, like a razor blade, preferably a new one, brand new sharp one, some generic green camping mat or sleeping mat, and a heat gun. And I'm going to show you how I like to do that little effect. Alright, the main thing we got going on here is just a piece of U.S. Army surplus generic green foam mat. This, I guess, is from the 90s. It's a bit stiff, but this will absolutely do what we need it to do. So as you can see here, this is what the original mat looked like on the inside of Frost's helmet. And here you see maybe a little cleaner example from the inside of Crow's knee pad. And as you can see, the grid pattern is fairly obvious. Maybe I don't know, 1/4 inch squares, if that. So the main thing we're going to do, like I said, is a brand new sharp razor blade, a straight edge of any kind. You can use a ruler. I happen to have this here. We're going to take our generic green mat that does not have the signature pattern. We're going to get a piece that's big enough to cover whatever piece you're doing. If you're doing the knee pads, if you're doing the lobster plates, you go for that. Just make it roughly to that shape. You're going to want to make it bigger than the shape, so don't worry about your shape first. Do your pattern first. And you're just going to basically take your straight edge, you're going to swipe it, and you're going to adjust it. Like I said, I think it's about a 1/4 inch. It's kind of impossible to say. I don't have an original one to test it on. But we're going to just swipe it. You don't want to cut all the way through. Obviously, you're not trying to cut chunks off of your mat. You're just trying to get a horizontal line as the start of your grid going. And now you're not going to be able to see it real good, but if you bend it, you can see it. We have our scoring across the top. Like I said, I'm going maybe 1/8 of an inch deep, maybe a little deeper on accident. This is not necessarily my best work so far ever. But now that we've got the horizontal, we're going to go for the vertical stripes. Same process. But even though you can't see anything going on yet, you know you made your marks with your razor blade. And we're going to hit it with a heat gun to kind of melt the foam. And you see it starting to peek out right now. And here comes our pattern. So the hotter you have it, the faster it's going to melt. You're going to want to try to keep it consistent. It's like magic. Now you have a camping mat or foam padding with a grid pattern. And that really is all there is to it. So is this perfect? No. Is it Dutch? No. If you're one of those real hardcore people, this may not quite scratch your itch. But if you're like me, who does the best I can with what you got until you get something better, I think this is a pretty good method. So obviously how long you take your time to do the grid pattern consistently is going to show up in your final results. But yeah, in any case, that's how I do my grid pattern on my modern padding that I think gives it a much better look than, for example, just this. This is how I did it the first time. I really didn't finish it then. So now I'm going to go into that lobster plate on my Hudson helmet with that technique. A little harder when it's on the helmet, but I think it'll make it look a lot better overall. Now the last thing you can do doesn't have anything to do with altering your armor. It is all about just getting a solid display going. This armor, your costumes, even if you are the most hardcore of convention goers and you don't miss a single Halloween, you're probably still not going to actually be wearing your gear, except for maybe 1% of the time. So for that, I recommend the last suggestion I have to make your armor look good: get a mannequin. Mannequins are not necessarily cheap. You can find them on Amazon for sometimes as cheap as 80 bucks for a full-size mannequin. I think that's where most of these come from. They're pretty generic, and I don't get a lot of fancy options for display poses, but they get the job done. Now, that's not to say that you need to have a mannequin for it to look good. Case in point, I basically stole this idea from my son's Minecraft game, where they just had wooden crosses where he displayed all his armor in his little house that he built. And I thought, man, I can do that. That's not hard. So as you see through here, it's literally just PVC pipe. For $15 to $30, depending on how fancy you want to get with it. Like I say, this one here for the Terry English armor, I even built leg sections to display the greaves. This one here for the Dietrich set, I literally just have a cross pipe straight up and a 4-way fitting that holds the arms and the helmet. This one here is like $15 worth of PVC, and I think it looks a heck of a lot better displayed there like that than it would just crumpled up on the floor or even resting on a bookshelf. Getting it up off the ground really does, you know, really highlights what you've got going on there, and it's a very inexpensive way to get your armor up and looking good. So there we have it. I think we made a lot of good little details, and I know I am much more happy with this particular set than I was going in. And hopefully some of these tips and tricks are something y'all are able to make use of as well. Thanks for watching, and as always, if you have any questions and want something else, a little more info, or even an entirely new video possibly, if it's something I can help with, just go ahead and post in the comments section. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.